4D Hand of Cards Acrylic Nail Art Tutorial by Hotpinkzebrapolish.
Hi guys, in today's video I'm going to be showing you a really cool nail that is something that is a new idea that I just had that I will be doing 2 videos using this technique pretty soon, pretty close here, so there'll be another one in a week or so, or maybe a little longer. But anyways, this one is a hand of cards. So the first card, the 10 of spades, is stationary, so you can have all your cards folded underneath there, and you can't really see them, but then you can push them out and fan out the hand, and then you see that you have an ace high straight, which is just so cool. I love this so much, and it's got just a really pretty simple background and some studs and some rhinestones. I hope you guys like it as much as I do, and there will be a nail that goes with it that is a 4D slot machine that will be uploaded tomorrow. So if you like this ever so slightly Vegas card playing, gambling sort of type of thing, I hope you guys like that one too, and I'll put a link to it in the description box below once it is uploaded, so check back for that, and I will see you in my next video.
In the background, I wanted a little gradient of red to black, kind of, for the different red cards and black cards. So I started out with black acrylic at the tip of the nail, and then I'm going to brush that up the nail to create that slight fade. That one is not nearly as important as the red, which will be next. So the black is the first thing, and you just want to kind of fade it up so there's not that harsh line. It'll make the red blend easier. Then apply your bead of red acrylic near the cuticle. Make sure it's a fairly wet bead. That'll make the gradient a lot easier to do, and then just kind of blend it down and add a little bit more acrylic here and there if you need to. The other thing that you can do if you aren't happy with your gradient is you can file it, and generally when you file or buff that gradient you'll get a much smoother finish if you don't like it. Otherwise, go ahead and encase it with a layer of clear acrylic if you think your gradient is good. Remember that you are going to have a lot going on top of this nail. This is really just the background, but if you are doing these as a full set, you would probably, I don't know, I think this red and black gradient would look amazing on the other nails too. So then I'm going to be filing the nail into shape with my E-file. I started out with a coarse bit to remove any bulk, and then I'm going to switch over to a much finer bit just to make sure that the surface is really smooth and is very easy to work on later, even though not too much of what this design is actually happens on the nail itself. So now to make your cards, you're going to take a white nail tip. You don't have to use a white one, but I would recommend it if you have them. And you're going to try to cut it into rectangles. Now, nail tips are not flat. They aren't really made to be cut into nice little squares or rectangles. So this wasn't as easy as you may think, but just try to get them as close to a nice, perfect rectangle as you can. Mine were a little bit more trapezoidy than I probably would have preferred, but they were all a little bit more of a trapezoid, so it worked out. Then go ahead, so you're going to need 5 of those. So start cutting your nail tips. So then just take and round out the edges a little bit and then remove the shine from the surface of the nail tip. That is really going to be important because you also want these to be very thin. So the reason I used, and then you're going to start painting your cards. So I start with a 10 of spades. So 2 10s in the corners, and then make 4 dots to sort of space out your spades that are on the outside, and then go ahead and start painting them. So the spades are like an upside down heart with a little stem coming from between the 2 little bumps. So you can go ahead and just start painting your spades. Now, again, the reason that I was going to, or that I used white nail tips instead of using a different color, like you could use a natural nail tip or a clear nail tip without a problem, but then you're gonna have to make it white, and that is going to just be adding more layers onto it to make it thicker. And so any way that you can make these as thin as you can works out well. But I am going to be doing a very similar nail coming up here in the near future that I didn't have the right color, so I did paint them, and so you will see how I went about doing that if you don't have white nail tips. But that's a pretty common one to have on hand, so hopefully you do. So the next card I'm painting is going to be the Jack. So because of the way these are, the only card that or the way that a hand of cards is held, the only card that you see in entirety is the one that's on top, which will be the 10 of spades, since it goes 10, Jack, Queen, King, Ace for my little ace high straight. So for the Jack, you don't have to really worry about that bottom right hand corner, since that's going to be hidden underneath the 10 of spades. So you really just have to focus on the upper left hand corner. So as you can see, I didn't even continue and add the other J on the other corner. It's never going to be seen, so it doesn't need to be there. And then I'm just going to take, and all of my face cards that I added detail as I saw fit. I didn't go through and actually do a lot of things. Like on the Jack, I didn't even worry about adding his eyes or anything like that. This is a one-eyed Jack, so he's got his head to the side, so you can't see much of his facial features, but just add enough that it's obviously recognizable as to what it is. So the next one I'm going to be doing is the Queen. I did paint these in order when I was doing them. I actually had cards all lined out, 10, Jack, Queen, King, Ace, just to make it easier. And so you just keep painting them. Now, The other thing to think about with these cards is that there are so many different styles of cards. I mean, I've got a lot. Most of my decks of cards, my family and I, we love playing cards. Most of my decks of cards are not even the traditional thing. Like I've got one that's from the Washington Zoo in Washington, D.C., the National Zoo, and it's all different animals. I've actually got 2 decks that are all different animals, and I've got a panda deck that's from the Panda Foundation. Anyways, I've got all these different decks, so I had to actually hunt down a deck of cards that was normal to do this. You can otherwise get photos on the internet. But do your queen and then do your king. So all of them start out basically the same way, with the letter in the corner and then having that blue little rectangle outline with the spade right inside. The other thing that I went back and forth about whether or not I wanted to add is that generally underneath the K, the 10, the so on and so forth, there would be a very small spade, just so that if you just see the king quick, you can tell that if it's a spade or a club. I decided not to add those because really on the cards, they're so tiny that in order to be able to see them on this nail, since the nail, or on these little tiny cards that you're making, it would have to basically just be a black dot. And at that point, I decided it wasn't worthwhile to add it, but you can if you'd like to. So decide that for yourself if you want to. Now the easiest one to do is the last one I did, and that is going to be the ace. And so we start out with just an A in the corner and then a much larger spade in the very center. So just like I said before, upside down heart with a little stem. Then you're going to want to go through and add a layer of matte top coat over these. I did use a gel matte top coat, and I used Koopa's specifically because theirs doesn't have a tacky layer on it. All my other matte top coats that are gel do, and that one doesn't, so that's a good one to use. Then take a very narrow bit on your E-file, and through your ace through jack or your jack through ace, you're going to want to add a hole in the bottom of it, right in the center. So everything but the 10, essentially. Then grab a piece of wire and bend it at a 90-degree angle and glue it to the back. But you don't want to glue it so that the little bend is all the way at the bottom. You want to leave a little gap so that as your cards fit, the holes right about where the wire post comes through and they line up. If your wire post goes all the way to the bottom, the hole in the other cards isn't all the way at the bottom, so they're not going to align quite right. So then you're just going to want to string all of your other cards onto that wire post after that has dried completely. And then take that same little teeny tiny nail bit, and you're going to want to create a hole in the lower left-hand corner of your nail, and then string your little bit of wire through there and then bend it up. So this is going to be what's securing your hand of cards to your nail. Cut off the extra wire, and then I just went and I held the cards in place very carefully so that they don't move on me, and I glued that wire little bend underneath the nail so that it's not going to go anywhere. Then I'm going to be adding rhinestones all along the cuticle area. So I started out with a really big one that's got a nice gold edge on it. I kind of went with gold and, just kind of gold and black rhinestones for the most part. So I added that large gold one and then 2 large black ones on either side of it. And then I have these adorable little heart studs. So I placed one of those because that's upside down, and then added a caviar bead underneath them, so they kind of looked like a spade. It's abstract, but I thought that it was pretty cute. So then apply gel sealer over the entire nail. You have to move the cards out of the way, apply it around, and then put the cards back. The reason I did it this way instead of applying the gel sealer prior to attaching the cards, which you definitely could do, is because I wanted to apply the gel sealer after my rhinestones were applied or attached, and I wasn't entirely sure how I was going to attach them in what order until I had the cards there to see. So, you kind of have to think about it, but you can, if you wanted to, you could definitely do it. Now, the one thing that I would probably change about this nail for me is that I think my cards got a little bit too tight, so I would have left a little bit less. I was actually trying to get it super tight when I was bending that wire underneath. If you leave it just a little bit more space than I did, it'd be much easier to open the hand of cards, but once they are opened or closed, they don't move. So it just takes a little bit to get them opened or shut. So I hope you guys love this, and please share any recreations with me on Facebook or Instagram. I would love to see them, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!